8radio.com.
Hi, welcome to Radio. I'm Tony, and this is Dan.
And you are watching
Dear Dad on
Dear
radio.com.
Coming up on 3 years of Dear Dad. So welcome everyone. The show where we bring you life and topics and pretty much all kinds of stuff
anything family related,
from
anything
a guy's point of
dad
view.
related,
Yeah.
male related. We do some things for men, specifically men. There aren't a lot of men shows, right?
Right. And I think that's the idea. It's not so much that we don't talk about topics that women can't relate to, but we give you the guy's perspective on things. And I think we have a lot of viewers who are women who watch our show because they want to see how we see things. Because a lot of times it's different.
And we don't trash them.
No.
I don't remember us doing that on any of the shows.
No. Why would we trash women? Women
I'm just saying.
Incredible.
I'm just saying we do pretty good.
They're almost like guys. They're just not the same.
Yeah. They're just built differently.
That's it.
Which is good.
So we've been doing this a while, and tonight we're going to talk about some issues that involve families and how families deal with different situations. I know you have a situation going on we're going to deal with.
Yep.
Before that, just a little bit of things that are going on in the world. You know, I heard something really ironic yesterday.
Okay.
In California, they had put a memorial to George Harrison, who died a few years ago from, the Beatles.
The
He was
Beatles,
the guitarist.
George Harrison.
And they planted this tree, and they put up a nice big plaque. This is the George Harrison tree. And they had to remove it a day or two ago because the tree died from an infestation of Beatles. How's that for irony?
Wow.
So
That is pretty ironic.
I heard that. I said, that's just kind of weird.
Damn.
But they're going to replace the tree.
Now, for George Harrison and the Beatles, I don't know, we're a couple of years different in age.
Not too many, but a couple.
But when they did this Bangladesh thing and feed the people and things like that in Bangladesh, and I'm not sure what album it was and
It was
what
a
year
concert
it was.
for the people of Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. That opened up like a whole new thing for me personally. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't learn anything. I didn't learn anything about Bangladesh in school. I was probably in middle school or maybe late grade school when that came about, and never heard about it. You know, in our country, or the United States, there's not a lot of famine. There's not a lot of really needy people.
Well, I think there
where
are.
we're
I think
growing
it's
up.
different. I think it's different. I think we have pockets of that we don't get to see, but not as such a widespread where the majority of the country is
I
that way.
certainly wasn't exposed to that.
No.
So seeing that for the first time, and really seeing that people, are really in need. I mean, really in need, and how much better off you are than they are, was an eye opener for me at that age.
Right.
And that's something that's lasted me all the way through. I guess that's over 30 years ago. I'm sure it's more than 30 years ago.
You became more aware and more, I guess, responsive to the world as instead of just your piece of it. And also what George Harrison did, I mean, there were some before that, but on the scale that he did it, ever since then, musicians have really taken up that mantle of trying to help a cause.
Feed the World, the We Are the
Feed
World.
the World, We Are the World, Farm Aid,
Farm Aid.
Bono, and all his different things.
Right.
And whenever there's if you've noticed over the past even 5 years in this country, whenever there's a major disaster, Hurricane Sandy, or any of the major disasters, who's the first group to put on a benefit? The musicians and the artists.
Yes.
You know, it's not politicians going out there saying, let's do a fundraiser to help these people. It's the musicians and artists that always step up and say, okay,
Right.
let's raise some money. And they donate their time and their talents. And it started with George Harrison for the most part. There were others before him,
Yeah,
but
in
he
my
was the
memory,
first.
it started there for me. I don't, you know, I know that Bob Hope always had the guys
that
that
was the
traveled around for
service.
the USO
Right.
and the service. I don't know if they did any other humanitarian things, but for me, I was first introduced to that by Harrison and the Beatles, and
Right.
and that made me aware of people like that out there.
And I think it also came at a time when the whole world was just becoming smaller because of television. I mean, Vietnam was the first time anyone was exposed to war almost as it happens. You know, and so we're able to see what's going on. And even like today, what's happening across the world. On a family, you know, questionable what you would do as a family, what's going on in Israel right now, there's, you know, Israel is at war with the Palestinian insurgents, and there's a family from our area in New York who their 4 children were visiting their cousins in Israel.
Right.
Before the war broke out, and now that the war broke out, and these are younger kids, I think they're between 8 and 14, and there's 4 of them. The war broke out, and now the parents say, okay, you got to come home, it's too dangerous, and they said no. If our cousins are going to have to be brave enough to withstand this, we're going to stay with them.
Right.
And the parents actually, what do you think you would, what would your response be to that? I mean, I understand the plight of the kids.
I'd say, I want you to come home, right?
But they
I would
say, "We're not coming
hey,
home."
listen, you guys have to come home. Obviously, being a parent, you'd be super concerned about that. Yeah, I think it's noble and brave and honorable and all those things. But, you know, nobody wants to see their children, whether they're young children or young adults who are now soldiers or anything like that, in a dangerous place. So, yeah, my immediate reaction would be, no, not a good idea.
So your
home.
gut knee-jerk reaction is, no, you got to come home.
Yeah.
But now think about it this way. In our children, we have to teach certain values, certain things in life, and bravery. And I mean bravery in the right sense, where being able to be afraid but still standing up for what you believe. By making them come home and leaving the cousins there, are they teaching them to let the terror win? You know, well, we're scared, so we're bringing you home. And which is basically what they want. Anytime there's a terrorist, that means they make you change what you do because you're afraid. So I think the lesson there is that, what do you want to teach? So what happened?
Again, I hear that. I hear that people say, if you give in and allow your life to be disrupted, then the terrorists win.
Right.
I get that. But risking your life for, you know, maybe something that's not critical, okay? So I say, yeah, if you're emergency personnel, you're a soldier or whatever, then yeah, you need to go in and take care of what you need to do.
Okay,
But if
so
you're
would
just
you
go-
bring
if you're just
the
there on a
cousins back
vacation,
too?
If you're just going on a vacation, well then I say don't take your vacation when it's a dangerous period.
Well, they were there already. before the war
No,
broke
I
out.
got that. I
Would
got
you-
that. But they're not performing an essential function to the city, the government,
Correct.
or anything like that.
Would you bring the cousins back with your children
Would I take the ones who live there and
who
come
live
back?
there?
Sure.
What if they didn't want to come?
I can't do anything about that. My own children, I can have influence on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I'll tell you, that's not what the parents did. What the parents did is they flew to Israel to be with their kids, and they're all going to stay there.
So the parents can be there as well.
So instead of just saying, okay, they said, well, if this is what you really truly believe in, we will respect that and we'll support you, but we want to be there with you. And that's what they did. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I mean, these are just decisions as parents that,
I'm going to tell you this.
These are life-changing decisions.
You
It
know,
could be.
my cousin had a really nice Italian restaurant upstate New York. There was a dish called chicken disclafani. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe
So
that
you
made
have
sense,
that yellow streak running down? I don't think that's true.
right?
Yeah.
I always say the same
I've
thing.
never known you run away from-
How brave was General Tao if they named the chicken dish after him? I just,
Well, I guess
I
that's
don't
true.
really know. But back to our topic. Our topic, it's a cultural thing as well.
Yes, very cultural,
right.
especially among Israelites.
With the Israelites.
Yes,
It really
because
is.
it's always been
know,
a problem.
Back to the time of David, right? It's always been, or even further back, it's always been about their culture based on the heroics
And the
the
land,
fighting
who
and the war and
belongs
protecting
there.
the land and their religions and their religious beliefs and their undying conviction. So I don't have a problem with that. I understand. I know some people who are Israeli, and they're my age, and they're they were all trained, right? Because you have to put 2 years in
In the military, right.
in the military.
Everybody, men and women.
And you're never out of the military. This particular person that I know happens to be a pilot.
Okay, so they can bring him back anytime at any age?
Right. So I'm dealing with him, and he says, Tony, I'm not going to be around for about a week. I said, oh, okay, David, you going on vacation or whatever? And he says, no, I need to go home to Israel. And I figured maybe it had something to do with immigration or whatever.
Right.
And he says, I have to be back. I'll be there for like maybe 3 or 4 days, and I'll come back. I was like, okay. He leaves, calls me when he comes back. And I said, did everything go okay? Did you visit family or whatever? And he says, no. He says, I'm a military pilot. And there was a particular mission that we had to fly, so I was responsible. I had to go back. So I'm like, David, you're like my age. That's
But he can't opt out of that or opt into it?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't know that.
He was about 45. I said, you're too old to play war games. And he goes, no, that isn't how it works in Israel.
Yeah.
He says they can call you back at any time, and it's your duty to do that. And that's how it is. I said, so what do? You go home for a weekend? You fly someplace? You drop some bombs or whatever? I mean, I don't know what he did, of course.
But basically, yeah.
And then you come back and you go back to work on Monday? He goes, yeah. He goes, but it's acceptable. He goes, everyone in Israel understands that's how it works.
See, and these are the different
So I
things
didn't,
that people...
so that was very different than certainly the way I was raised, of course, and the way our
Right.
culture is in the United States. That's very different. But,
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about how things in our own home. I mean, this is a severe situation with decisions, but we're going to talk about how things right in your own home can change the family dynamics. So watch this message, and we'll be right back on Dear Dad.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com. For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or the flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural
And organic.
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
And welcome back to Dear Dad and Dan, and he's Tony, and it's Thursday, and we're talking about life and things, and you have some things going on in your life over the past few weeks.
Sometimes life just runs away with you.
Well, let me set it up. About 6 months ago, you said, yeah, I'm thinking of doing my kitchen over. And having done that myself several years ago, I kind of said to myself, oh boy. Because unless you've done it...
I didn't have any idea.
Right. Unless you've done it, you don't kind of get what's entailed. From the very beginning in the planning to you're almost done now. You're almost done.
I'm almost done. I'm like 95% there.
So from the family dynamics point of view, try and give us sort of a short synopsis of the relationship, and we'll leave out the kids for the moment, just between you and your wife and how it evolved from that very early stages where you didn't agree about anything because you had your ideas, she had her ideas, and you were right and she was wrong, and in her mind you were wrong, and how you ended up trying to really put that together so now you come out with a package that you're both happy with, and you didn't end up divorced over it.
Not yet.
But you're 95% of the way there. You just said it. So, take us through the journey.
Okay, so for us, it started probably way back more than 6 months, because when you do a project like this, it's costly. And anybody who watches any of the shows, they'll know when you do a kitchen, it costs a lot of money to do it. So you need to be prepared. So we began to prepare. A couple of years, or I would say about a year and a half ahead of time. Well,
kitchens can be the most expensive.
Yeah,
and
probably the most expensive renovation that you're going to do to your home. So, so we began by having an idea. We had an idea of what we wanted to do.
Right.
And then going out and see what kind of funds we had. So whether you had enough money to do it on your own, or whether you were going to take a bank loan, or or you were going to do it maybe a piece at a time if it's possible to do that. Kitchen set's probably hard.
It's hard.
Because once you take your sink out,
You got to do it.
you can't be without a sink for 8 years. So you have to do it.
Right. So now, originally, very first idea, did you both agree as to the size of the job? No, did you want to completely redo a huge thing and go from a small kitchen to a huge kitchen, and she wanted a smaller, or did you kind of both agree that we want a big?
In my household, okay, I'm the primary breadwinner.
Right.
Okay, and I also manage a lot of the bills. Okay, meaning that I'm very aware. I may not write out every check, but I'm very aware of what we spend and what we save and what we can and cannot afford to do.
Okay.
Okay. So when we discussed the project, we came up with a number and said, I think it's going to cost around this much money to get it done.
Okay.
And and then Marina said, yeah, that sounds right to me, and if that's what it's going to cost, I think we should still do it.
Okay.
Okay, so we had an idea.
So the scale was similar.
Right. So we had an idea. So fast forward a year after we decided that we were going to go to a bank and get a equity loan. Okay, and we put the money. We got the money. You got to have the money up front. If you don't have the money to spend, and you're going to get the money, you need to have the money up front. Because if you start your project, and you run out of money, and then you go to the bank, and the bank says, "Hey, Tony, I don't want to give you any money," you got a half-finished kitchen.
Right.
So you have to do that. So
You have to know you can complete the project.
Right. And if you go over budget, you got to have a little room.
Correct.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people do, is they think just because they worked it out in the beginning to be $15,000 that's what it's going to cost.
Right.
It never. You always go over.
Yeah.
And you have to build
halfway
that in.
through this, somebody at work said to me, 1/3 longer, 1/3 more.
Okay. That's
what-
probably realistic,
And
too.
I guess they quoted it from somewhere, and that's really about what it came out to. That's really about what it came out to. So we started on our path, and that's when we got into the point where we said, okay, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And then we started to talk about, well, what do we want this kitchen to look like, or what do we want this project, the scope of the project to be? And I didn't bring it with me, but I actually wrote, and you know me, I like to write things. So I wrote a scope for the project.
Okay. I mean, you drew it out exactly,
No,
or?
in words.
Oh,
I
like
wrote.
a novel.
I wrote scope of project. We're going to new cabinets, tile the floor. We're going to add a fireplace. We're going to
It's more like
put
a
in a
list
skylight.
rather than
Almost,
a
but
novel.
but the reason why I began to write that down is because you go along your merry way and you get pulled in directions.
Right.
You go to the tile store, and the guy says, "Do you want marble? Do you want terracotta? Do you want the floor that looks like wood?"
Right.
You've got so many choices. And then they say, do you want to do just your dining room and kitchen? Or do you want it to expand into the living area? Do you want it down the hallway? So you don't want to end up in a place where you don't know what you want, because you end up going back 5 times.
Right.
So you have to have a really good idea. I'm not even going to say a general idea, but you have to have a really good idea of what you guys want. So we got to those stages really quick. As soon as you get started on your project, you get to the stages really quick where you need to make a decision. Otherwise, your project is going to take very long.
Right.
And then when you order stuff, it takes time to get it. Okay. So from that standpoint, Marina and I found that we were not on the same page with some things. And we had to get that straightened out before we went to the store and started talking to the tile guy. And he wants to listen to me, or he wants to listen to her, and he's not listening to me or not listening to her.
And I mean, realistically,
So-
the difference between one type of tile to another can be 3 and 4 times the price.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
There's certain things that can have a huge range in price. I mean, realistically, things like appliances, unless you're going for industrial grade stuff,
Sure.
they're all within the same price ranges, more or less. But certain things like the countertops,
Countertops
if you
could
go
be very
from
expensive.
if
you go with an exotic stone,
right.
it could be very expensive.
Or even if you decide to go with a laminate, that could be very inexpensive versus granite and versus...
And cabinets are really expensive.
Yes, but they can, that's another thing with a wide range is what I'm saying.
You can get prefabbed, a lot of fake wood. They even put like a decal of a wood on top of fake wood, which is a really low-end cabinet.
Right.
Then they have some that are like plywood with a veneer, and then they have solid cabinets, solid wood cabinets, and you can go on and on and on.
Then you
can
have
go from,
custom handmade with exotic woods.
you can go from $1,500 worth of cabinets for your project to $15,000 worth of cabinets for your project, like that, and still have the same number of cabinets.
Wow. Well, to find out which cabinets Tony decided on, you're going to have to stay tuned because we're going to go for a break. And when we come back, you're going to find out what he decided on.
We're going to get to the tough decision parts.
As soon as we get back. Watch this for us.
See you in a few.
This is Joe Larson from the 505 Racing Show, live every Monday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch as I dive into everything from NASCAR and motor racing, only on InRavio.com.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
Hey, this is Chris and Les Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
InRavio.com. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hi, and welcome back to InRavio.com. This is the Dear Dad Show.
Yes, and when we left you before, we were talking about remodeling Tony's kitchen, and we were getting to the meat of the story. We're talking about the decision
There's challenges.
process.
We're talking about, the interaction and relationship between the people in the home.
Right, well, because
Okay?
that's
so
what...
different than, got to get a plumber and, got a leak in the sink type of thing.
And also, it's different in your job, not mine really. You have to deal with people on business and making decisions about price and cost, and it's a lot different
Right.
when it's you and your spouse than it's you and either a coworker who's either your equal or above or below you on the ladder, where you
Absolutely.
have to... Yeah.
Because at work you could say, hey, this is what we're doing.
Right.
And then at 5 o'clock they go home and you go home.
Or you totally believe in one thing is absolutely right, and the person above you goes, no.
Right.
And you, okay, now what?
And
So-
you say, hey, listen, I think I could live with that decision.
Right.
Sometimes you
Well,
say, I can't live with that
You were
decision.
talking, sometime before a decision was made
but
that you don't
certainly.
agree with, but you don't have the choice. So
Dynamics are different when it's
Absolutely.
somebody you're married to.
Because now you have
and
to
it's someone
live with
you're,
that person.
You're going to spend the rest of your life with. You want them to be happy about stuff, and you want to be happy about stuff. So when we were talking about doing a kitchen over, so you're talking about something that you don't. It's not like painting where you say, well, if I don't like it, I could just repaint.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a specific question so
Sure.
we don't stay so nebulous here. Give me an example, or two examples. One of a decision where you were totally opposite and you felt passionate enough that you had to swing it your way, and one that you knew she really wanted it and you had to swing it her way. How did those work?
Okay,
out?
so I'll tell you the one that I bucked the.
Because that's where the meat
I
of the
bucked
relationship
my wife's
is
decision
how to really come to an agreement when you're
Right.
at polar
Right.
opposites.
Okay, so we did some modification to the kitchen, and we closed up a window that we only had one window in the kitchen.
Okay.
And I felt that window gave us some light, and my wife says, it may have given us some light, but I'm always looking into the neighbor's window. Mm-hmm. So I hate that window, and I'm always closing the shade. That was her. So I don't want the window there. Now, closing that window up,
And you wanted the window there.
I wanted natural light.
Okay.
So closing that window up really was the best decision for the layout of the kitchen. Mm-hmm. It made the kitchen work better.
Okay.
So I knew I was closing up the window. That made sense to me. Having no natural light didn't make any sense. Even though today you could put LEDs and lots of hi-hats, and you could do a lot of different things to give yourself light. Under-the-counter lights, all that. But I wanted natural light. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a skylight.
Okay.
It worked out for my kitchen, where I could do that. But I ordered a round skylight. And it's basically a tube with a prismatic diffuser.
Okay.
So it's not like you look at the sky.
It almost looks like a light.
It looks like a
Yeah,
light.
it
It
looks
looks
like a light.
sort of like a light, yeah. But you can't turn it on or off, right?
Correct.
Okay. So anyway, so I did that, or I went to go do that, and Marina said, I don't want the skylight. If you do that, I'm going to be really angry. So a couple of days into the project, I knew I had to make a decision because the ceiling's going to end up getting closed up at some point. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what, I'm ordering a skylight because I really think we need it. But she was really angry at that. I didn't order it. For whatever reason, I got a little delay in the project. And when my guys came back, I said, I was thinking about putting a skylight here. And they said, yeah, we closed up that window for you. You could use natural light. And I said, fine. That was like a 3 against 1 type of thing.
Yeah, you
Now, of
figure,
course,
okay,
they
I
didn't have
got
to
the
sleep.
guy, right.
Yeah, they didn't have to sleep with my wife, so they can make that decision and feel comfortable about it. Okay. So I went out and I ordered it, and I got it in here super fast. It cost me like $75 extra to fly it in here, so I had it because I only had a few days to get it in. And I did it, and my wife was still not happy that we were going to put the light in. Everyone that comes in and looks at the kitchen, they go, "Oh, I really like your skylight," and she actually ended up liking it.
So in
And she
the
liked
long
it.
run,
in
she
the
likes
long run, it worked out.
it. Okay.
Her decision that she went with, that I wasn't sold on, was tile throughout the whole floor, because I had all this hardwood floor, and I said, "Hey, you know, I've got this that people go crazy to get hardwood floors, and I have real hardwood floors that are like 50 years old, but they're in really good condition," and she liked that. So anyway, and I liked the whole wood because the wood theme went with everything that we were doing, but there was no good natural transition from tile, which is what you would want in the kitchen, and then wood,
So
which
you
is what I
couldn't
have.
really
Yeah,
make it
which is what I
flow.
have in my living room. There really was no good natural transition, and I couldn't justify not having tile throughout everything. There would have been a maybe not a step, but an uncomfortable transition from wood to tile. We opened up the whole area, so the living room, kitchen, and dining room would be one room. If you now segment it by putting tile over here and leaving wood over here, it sort of looks like 2 rooms. And it defeated the purpose that you did all that work to take walls down.
Right.
In the end, it was costly, you know, like kind of
Cost
costly.
more than
It was
refinishing
part
the
of the
wood.
1/3 more and the
Right.
1/3 more time because it caused delays as well. But she was 100% right.
Okay.
The right way to go was tile everywhere. And she kind of stuck to her guns with that, and I said, okay, we'll do it, and we did it. So there was, you know, there's the give and take, right? Marriage is a give and take, and that's why we do stuff on the show. We try to make sure people understand a little bit about, living together and getting along with people in your family. It's a give and take. And I had to give up on something, and for me it was I had to get rid of those hardwood floors, which I really liked.
What'd you do with the wood? Did you just trash it?
You know, it's funny that you asked that. I went online and I really tried to find who wants wood floors. You would think that they sell refurbished wood floors.
No.
And they do.
They do.
But not what I have.
No.
They have refurbished from Thomas Jefferson's house. They have refurbished wood planking that's like really wide, because then what they can do is they could trim it and they could re-edge it, because it has to have a tongue and a groove, right?
Right.
They can create. But my boards were small. And
Right.
if you break the board, they can't remake that into another board. They'd be like you're putting down
Right.
toothpicks. So there was no commercially viable source that wanted my floors. So I took them out. I saved some for repair because I have hardwood floors in other rooms.
Right.
Saved some. My son took some because he's going to make a bar top for when he buys his home.
Okay.
So he'll have something from the house. My brother-in-law wanted some because he has hardwood floors and he has some damage.
Okay.
And the bulk of it, which was a lot, I brought to my friend who's going to burn it in his fireplace. And he says, I could burn the hardwood. I don't know why.
It's got varnish.
I said that to him. He knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
Charlie, good luck. I hope we don't cause you any brain damage. But, so that's what we did with the hardwood floors.
Okay.
So back to where we were in the shared decision process. That's how we went out, and that's kind of how it was like, what is it, ham and egging it,
Right.
So I had my ham of what I wanted, she had her egg of what she wanted, and that's how we did it, and we did it all the way through. You have to have this settled. We got lucky because the 2 things that we did didn't cause us big delays.
Right.
And it wasn't a shift in redoing work that was already done. But if you change your mind in the middle of a big project, you run the risk of serious over cost,
Absolutely.
serious overtime, okay? And then you could aggravate your contractor enough
Sure.
to where they don't want to do the job. or they walk off to say you got to make up your mind. So you have to have a plan. We had a plan. You had mentioned about when I started to talk about how I wrote out the scope of my project. I did do drawings.
Right.
I did a lot of drawings, and I did conceptual drawings. So I drew my fireplace out. I knew I wanted stone on it. I had approximately the size that I wanted. I drew it out and I gave it to my contractor, and they worked it out. Some people go the path of getting an architect.
Right. But you,
Yes, yes. But Marina and I were kind of like the general contractors on the project. I hired guys to do carpentry work. I hired a tile man. I did the electrical work. So we GC'd it ourselves.
Right.
Whereas if you would go to a designer and an architect, you have a package. You have a bundle of plans.
And
And you
they
can
take care of
bid everything out to 10 people. Then take your best price, and everyone's going to make it the same.
right.
But for us, our project was maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say loosey-goosey, but it wasn't as defined, well defined as a plan. And our contractor had input in, you know, let's make this a little bit larger, and I think maybe we should stop the stone here. And so my contractor was very good with that all, and he really helped us. And that's how we did it. But there was this consensus that we began to get as we got into the project.
Right.
Her and I had more agreement about things, and our discussions got a little bit more well-defined. And then we understood as we got through the project, you had to make a decision and you had to go with it.
Okay, well, we're going to find out how this project ends and bring us up to date when we get back here. So
Hopefully it ends happily.
well, we're close. So watch this message from our sponsors, and we'll be right back here on Dear Dad on Enravio.com.
This is Joe Larson from the 505 on Racing Show, live every Monday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch as I dive into everything from NASCAR and motor racing, only on Enravio.com.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or a flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural,
And organic.
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hey, this is Christmas Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Well, welcome back to Dear Dad. When we left, we were talking about Tony's kitchen and the process of completing it. Now, what you were talking when we left was how it was getting easier as you move along, and I think that's what I want to focus on for a minute. Is you've been married a long time.
31 years.
31 years, and you've raised 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd think by now you knew everything you needed to know about each other and how to work through different issues. But I think this process in itself helped you even more to learn how to negotiate with each other and work things out without getting into arguments. And did that surprise you at all, that you really needed to learn how to do this even better still?
Well, I could tell you that in the very beginning, you know, we weren't in sync.
Right.
And
well, because this isn't like decisions
and you don't
with your
always
kids.
realize it. I mean, you kind of realize it, but I remember specifically one day at the dinner table when I said something or she said something or whatever, and my oldest guy says, "Oh, here we go again."
No, he knew it was coming.
You guys, you're never going to agree on this. And he got up and he said, "I'm leaving." And
He didn't want to see the
and
fly.
I felt bad because, you know, first of all, we don't argue a lot. We just
Right.
we don't happen to be that type of people where we don't scream and yell. So we weren't screaming and yelling. So, I mean, obviously he saw it coming before we even knew we were going to have an argument
Right.
about something or a disagreement. Yeah. So as I was saying before we went out on break, that it did get easier. And I think it began to get easier for us because we understood the timing and sense of urgency. So, you know, you can look at 50 different cabinets.
Right.
But you get confused after a while. And you lose your focus of what you want. And that's why it's good to maybe either have it written down or keep it in the back of your mind when you when you decided what you wanted at the very beginning. Because we looked at so many, because they come in all different colors or whatever.
Right. There's
So we
millions.
went back to it and said, okay, we've seen too much stuff. Let's go back to the ones we liked. And what did we want? I want a lot of drawers. Okay. So we want cabinets with a lot of drawers. I want to stay with wood. I don't want white painted. I don't want, you know, whatever. I want to stay in the brown family. I want to, you know, so I don't want red cabinets or I don't want white cabinets or whatever it is. Okay. And then you had to decide, well, what kind of doors do you want? Do you want a lot of grooves? Do you want a lot of detail? Do you want a little detail?
You want simple.
And when she said, I like the shaker style, which doesn't have a lot of detail.
Very simple, yeah.
I said, I like the shaker style, but I'd like to get something that has a glaze in it. So you need a couple of details, a couple of pieces of detail in the cabinet to catch the glaze. So we went with a very plain type cabinet that had a very simple routering to it, which created a couple of lines where you picked up the glaze in the cabinet. So that's how we began to settle on things, okay? You give a little bit, I give a little bit, but you go back to what was your original requirement or what was your original desire, okay?
Right.
And we happen to have very, very similar taste. Like, you know, you would really struggle as a couple if your wife has traditional taste and you want modern.
Right.
Because there isn't a lot of stuff in the middle of that. If you're looking for high shine, high lacquer, and she's looking for, you know, distressed wood,
Right.
that's really far apart. You've got to figure that out before you go to the store.
Right. Well, I think
Because
that,
you're not
I
gonna
mean, when
find
you're
anything
that
in the middle.
different, I don't believe that most couples are that far apart because you're together because you have similar interests and likes.
Okay.
And I think there are some, I'm sure, that are worlds apart. But for the most part, you kind of knew going in what she likes and she kind of knew
Right.
what you like. And you knew you weren't worlds apart, or you may never have gone through the process at all, knowing
Right.
all it would do is create animosity. So,
Just to go back to the very beginning, what ended up happening was we knew we were going to do something. We planned. I happened to see something I really liked as a display somewhere. And I brought her back to that. I brought her to see that. She really liked it immediately. So everything that we've done was based on these, and I took pictures in the store. I know they probably thought I was crazy, but I took pictures in
I'm
the
sure
store.
people do that all the time now.
And it wasn't a display for kitchens, it was a display for tile, but they had a kitchen there. They had several kitchens, but this is one we liked. So when we got lost in the confusion of different tiles, different counters, different color paints, different finishes on things, we reverted back to our pictures. And we said, well, what's most like what we really wanted?
Right.
Because this is what we liked when we started. And I think that would help you if you're planning on doing a big project. Determine what you really like. Sketch it, draw it, write it, take a picture of it. Keep it. Put it on your bedroom window, a mirror, or your refrigerator or something like that. Or keep it in the box where you're going to be keeping all the things when you go pick out a tile or something
Right.
like that. And when you get lost, or you get confused,
Step
or you
back.
get caught up, Go back and look at what you originally wanted. Because a lot of times your first thought is your best.
Right.
And you get too confused about all the input.
Well, 'cause
that
there's so many
because
other
everybody
things.
wants to help you. Your
Right.
mom
Well,
wants to help
well,
you. Your relatives want to say, "Oh, you know what would be
Yeah.
nice here?
Oh, I
if
have
you had
this
a
and
grand
that."
piano, you know, put over here." Yeah, but I don't play the piano, and I don't have room for a freaking
Right.
piano. But you know, they're trying to be helpful.
But you also have then the salesperson who has a different interest. Oh, you'd love this better.
They wanna
'cause
sell you the
it
$14 a
lasts so
square
much
foot tile.
longer than, you know, so you really
Yeah.
have to sometimes just step back and say, okay, what are we really trying to
Right.
do here? Now, just one last question before we get off the topic.
Sure.
One thing that I didn't do, and because I was warned, did you ever like make a major decision of purchase because you just loved it so much and you thought she was going to love it so much and say, hey, look what I did, and she went, what?
I hate it.
Yeah, I didn't do that because I was one, but I know some people who think, oh,
Yeah.
I bought this you know, $10,000 appliance and it's the greatest thing, and they're like, I hate it.
No,
Good.
we did okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't surprise each other. That's a key. When you're working on a project like this, you
Oh,
really
it's a huge
you
investment.
have to work together because it really can cause a lot of stress emotionally on
Yeah.
your relationship, and it can either make you stronger or it can really pull you apart a lot. And I think you know you
And it could
found
be
a happy
it could be
medium.
a financial burden with you as well.
Absolutely.
You could make a decision that hurts you financially,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then it hurts everyone in the family as well. You know,
Right.
I want to buy another car or whatever, or kids go to college, or
Right. And when you're
you know,
doing
just everyday
that-
expenses, you may have burdened yourself.
Exactly, because what you have to do is you have your budget and you got to figure that third more. But you got to make sure that you have to put out there, okay, here's X amount. I cannot go over that, because if I
Right.
go over this,
Right.
it will hurt
If
me
you have
for
if you have a
years.
ceiling, try to stick to it.
You have to, because
Yeah.
once you go over it, it's like having...
Right. So,
Okay.
So it's a process.
It is.
It's a group decision. Your family. I like to tell the story about my wife's family.
I would make
That-
it a quick story,
Yeah,
because we got
like
30
I remember
seconds.
when I first met my wife, we talked about a lot of things, or whatever, and they talked about buying their pool. And the mom and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, what they did was they wrote up a contract for the kids to sign.
Right.
And they were either getting a car that year, or they were going to buy a pool. And everyone voted, and they decided to go with the pool. So they didn't get the car. So they had to drive in that really old station wagon for a bunch more years. Okay? And they wrote it all out, and they had the kids, and the kids were maybe 13, 14 years old, and they had the kids sign the contract. But they made the decision with their family on where they were going to allocate their money, and that's what
And
they
they did
did. And the kids to today, of course they're all in their 50s,
Right.
to today, they remember that. They remember that agreement.
They were
My
involved in
mother-in-law
the
still has
decision.
it signed.
There you go.
By the way. But that's another thing. When you're taking on a big project, you know, it's okay to have buy-in. I don't say that, you know, if you have one child that says, no, I don't want the kitchen,
No.
that you now decide not to spend all this money on a life improvement project, or, you know, or adding value to your home. But, you know, it's okay to get input from everybody, and I think
Right.
they'd appreciate it. I think they appreciate it.
I agree. And just to wrap it up, this whole, you know, anything that involves the family, make it something that everyone has a say in. Whether, like you say, you don't have to go their way, but if they at least have an input, they feel like they had their say.
Sure,
And
and
that's how
try to
you
give them
stay
something
and-
in the project.
And that's how it
right?
works. That's what families
If-
are about.
If little Bobby wants to be able to see the TV from where he sits,
Then he should be able to.
You may be able to work that out in the
That's
project
right.
and say, you know what, we're going to put the TV right over there so you can
Bobby
see it
can
when
see
you're
it.
having dinner. And that may be enough to satisfy him in what he wants.
Well, little Bobby, I want you to tune in next week at the same exact time.
On that
and he
TV?
can watch Dear Dad. Actually, he's going to go to his
On
laptop now,
enradio.com.
or his
No, you just
his
get
iPad.
Chromecast and you
he
can watch
go
us
on it.
anywhere.
But anyway, Tony, it's a great night. Thank you for giving us a whole insight into your project, and thank you.
All right, see you guys next week.
Good night now.
Good night.
Review.com. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.